We will now consider House Resolution 4684. The clerk will read.
Whereas Representative Norma Smith was born in Pensacola, Florida, to Chapman and Alex Creighton, who influenced the lives of so many simply by loving God and loving others. And whereas Representative Norma Smith graduated from Woodham High School in Pensacola, Florida, Pensacola Junior College, and later Puget Sound Christian College. And whereas Representative Norma Smith married Stephen Smith, the love of her life, and was married for 34 years and had 4 beautiful children. And whereas Stephen Smith, an incredible husband, father, and Marine, lost his life in the service of his community, and since his passing, she has credited him with such an abundant love that it would last enough for 2 lifetimes. And whereas Representative Norma Smith has 4 loving in-law children and 11 wonderful grandchildren who lovingly refer to her as Nana. And whereas Representative Norma Smith's children and in-law children have served in the Air Force, Army, and Navy, respectively. And whereas Representative Norma Smith loved and cared for her mother-in-law, Margaret, until her passing. And whereas Representative Norma Smith was a special assistant to the United States Representative Jack Metcalf and led a successful effort to recognize and provide benefits to veterans who suffered illnesses as a result of the first Gulf War. And whereas Representative Norma Smith served on the South Whidbey School Board, and whereas Representative Norma Smith was appointed state representative in the 10th Legislative District in January 2008 and went on to win the election in November 2008 and has served for 13 years. And whereas Representative Norma Smith has hired, mentored, and encouraged personal growth in 3 House legislative assistants who were all promoted to House Republican caucus staff. And whereas Representative Norma Smith has been a leader for her constituents, communities, and state for years. And
Last line.
Honorable Norma Smith.
The good gentleman from the 20th District, Representative DeBolt, to move the resolution.
I move House Resolution 4684.
It has been moved and seconded that House Resolution 4684 be adopted. Before I call on you, Representative DeBolt, I would just like to acknowledge that Representative Smith's children and grandchildren are joining us from across the globe remotely, and we would like to welcome them. Remarks from Representative DeBolt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's funny because I feel like she's part of my family too. So hello, all my relatives out there. It was interesting. Norma and I have had a wonderful career together. She's one of my best friends in the building. She's one of my best advisors. She's made me a better person. You know, when I stepped away from leadership, I had the opportunity to go and work on policy. And Norma would always get upset when I was leader because I would always do politics first. And they sent me to Norma's committees. I think it was for her to keep an eye on me. And she taught me a lot about how to be gracious, how to be a good listener, but how to put the people of Washington first. And the other thing that Norma did was she led with kindness in her heart. So often we get so upset here about such trivial things. And Norma's kindness would always shine through, even when she was really mad at you. And I would tell you, so she was the chair, she was the ranking, I was the assistant ranking on ITED, and I was the ranking and she was the assistant ranking on Capitol. And we spent, for the last 3 years, an exorbitant amount of time together, which is a curse and a blessing. She is one of those people, though, that you can't help but be in a good mood when you're with Norma Smith. And I will tell you, Norma, this institution is better because you've been here. And if it's not just your kindness and your spirituality, because you're one of the most spiritual women I've ever met, well, nix that, spiritual person I've ever met, because you're up there with my pastor, and I look for you for spiritual guidance all the time. You've prayed for me when I was sick. You've taught me to pray for myself. You've done so much to make me a better person. But this institution is better because you're here, and your citizens were better because you're here. And you actually taught us about consumption, which is a really hard thing to take a group of people and have them stop and think about what they consume and how they consume it and where it comes from. And so often it's so easy for us to think that we're driving an electric car and we're okay. But you remembered the children in the Congo and the batteries and the rare earth minerals. And we always used to, during the legislature, go, okay, here comes Norma. It's going to be a speech on rare earth minerals. But, you know, by the time we were done, we would just be like, oh, we need to think about that. And the last thing, though, is I love how much you love your kids and your grandkids. And, you know, my wife and I would come up and visit you over the summer, and I appreciate all your hospitality. And if you haven't gone on a tour of Norma's island, you need to, because it's her island. And meet her donkey and spend time with her and see the places that she values and holds dear. And you are such an inspirational woman. And I know why you're leaving, to go make the world a better place and to teach spirituality and to give people hope and inspiration in other parts of the world. And I know how much you're going to change the world, even more than you ever changed it here. But from one heart that's a better heart and a better Christian for knowing you, I just wanted to thank you, and I am so sorry you're leaving. But thank you.
Further remarks? The good member from the 14th District, Representative Mossbrooker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I stand in full support, and it's an honor to be here today for this resolution. So not all angels live in heaven. And some of our angels here are on earth, and I would say that Norma's one of them. Permission to read.
Permission granted. I thought you were talking about me, but okay.
So this is by Janet McCauley, and this fits my love and affection for Norma. So angels sent by God. Some angels live among us in an ordinary way to carry out their mission, and with all of that, they're okay. They do the work that glorifies the Father from above, and every step they take on earth is filled with God's own love. They redirect the wayward, and they comfort others still. They rescue and they enlighten. They share with us all goodwill. So be careful who you talk to, for you never really know that if you're talking with an angel sent by God to help you grow. And Norma's helping me grow. She's helped me grow from the day I met her, from pizza at Vic's Pizzeria to pictures of her perfect grandchildren, to just sitting next to her in the prayer group every Tuesday morning. It's a blessing to have her. She's the heartbeat of our caucus. I have no idea what it's going to be like without her in there. And she continued to bring faith to the Capitol, and for that I'm grateful.
Further remarks? The good member from the 24th District, Representative Theringer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm honored to be able to speak to this resolution honoring Norma Smith. I think in the resolution I heard the words loving and caring many times, and that's very fitting. Norma brought loving and caring to our work, and I work with her probably most closely on the capital budget. And her viewpoint on children's issues, mental health issues, behavioral health issues was loving and caring, and I think our budgets were better for that. I will say, as chair of the capital budget, I had to negotiate the number of questions Representative Smith could ask at certain times. As people know, she has a lot of questions. They're good questions, but they tend to be numerous, and so we sometimes would negotiate how many questions she would get at any particular time. It was a gentle, friendly negotiation, but I think it did move our committee along faster to not let Norma dominate the question periods with her questions, because she's very involved, very engaged, and has a lot of questions. But we have, as you know, we've worked hard to have a capital budget team that's very bipartisan, and Norma really brought that loving, caring voice to our capital budget decisions, and our capital budgets are more humane and more caring because of her, Norma, so thank you.
Further remarks, the good member from the 2nd District, Representative Wilcox.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, some people come and go from the chamber and they're remembered for a while. We've got an analogy that gets used in our caucus quite a bit that talks about how easy it is to just slide that nameplate out. And it is true, we've all seen members leave and you know, I know we all want to be remembered, but this is a place that's built around change. And there's a new person that comes in, sits at their desk, and pretty soon, you know, it's a whole new legislature and the past is just forgotten. I'm pretty sure that that's not going to be the case with Norma. Norma has had, it turns out, maybe you've noticed this, Madam Speaker, that we have a little bit of idle time on our hands here, so we get to visit with people, sometimes late at night. And so you learn an awful lot about people. And I know that Norma is one of those folks that have had several different lives. I know that one of those periods came to an end in a hard way. And Norma has shared that with us. Norma's the kind of person that all of us share with too. I can think of many things that have troubled me that I probably haven't shared with anybody but Norma, because you know that you can trust Norma. Boy, what a rare thing to say in a House of Representatives, that here's a person you can trust every second of the day. We know that that's a lot more common among politicians than people think, but those watching on TVW may be surprised to hear that. There's a lot of words that you can associate with Norma. Obviously, sincerity. Nobody here would ever question Norma's sincerity. Honesty is always there, sometimes when it's painful. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how my different roles in the legislature has changed, given me different perspectives on Norma. And every one of them has been valuable. Nobody that I've ever known in my life is both so sweet, nice, and determined. People talk about Norma as if she's sort of this caricature of the person that you would always go to, but they forget that the best way to describe her determination is that it is steely. You cannot divert Norma from her path when she knows that she's right, and that steely determination is driven by compassion. Nobody here is as undeviating when it comes to pursuing compassion in politics and in policy. And I'm sure it's because these important human characteristics are behind all of her decisions that she is so determined. When I was the floor leader, the best arrow in the quiver of the House Republican caucus, I think, was Norma as a closer. I have never known anybody that just packs up the moral high ground, puts it in her purse and carries it around and can unpack it in a speech. Because Norma, when you're done with a speech that you believe into, and by the way, you can't ask Norma to give every speech. You can't ask Norma to close every debate. It's got to be a debate that she believes in. But as the last speaker in something that we thought was important when she was a believer, even though the votes go against us, the House Republicans walk off feeling like winners. And I don't mean this to diminish anybody else, but that's the power of Norma Smith to all of us. I think the last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to, maybe the second to the last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to Norma is all of those qualities put together. Some of you know that she has recently been on a different side on an important issue from most of our caucus. It's not easy to accommodate that in a caucus, especially as leader, where you feel like you have to balance a lot of different issues. What made this such a great life lesson for me is that we were able to approach this from a position of perfect honesty and perfect openness. And I learned more about how to do politics, you know, in the inside the building way and in the best possible way in the last 2 years from engaging with Norma in this and figuring out how can we do this with the greatest possible integrity, and engaging with a person that you know is unflinchingly honest and has unflinching integrity. What a great experience for me, and I hope that it was plain to other people that that's the way Norma approaches this. And what a great thing if we can all be more like Norma when it comes to politics inside this building. The last thing that I think is so critical, I mentioned that Norma has had a series of different segments in her life. Some people say I've lived a lot of different lives, or that person's lived a million lives to my one. Norma's got at least one more left, I know. And when you talk to Norma about this day, it's painful to lose her. But she's excited. She's not someone that's looking back with regrets. She's looking forward because one more time, Norma Smith is on a mission. And I am so happy for you, Norma. I'm sad for us, like Richard said, but I am so happy because there are a bunch of people whose lives are going to be way, way better because you're leaving here and moving on to that life. So thanks for your life here. We won't forget you.
Further remarks. The good member from the district is that 21st District, Representative Peterson.
Thank you, Speaker Jenkins. Start off by saying I think it's okay that if you're speaking about Norma Smith and you get a little choked up, I think that's acceptable. I was honored to be asked to speak today, and I've heard some great words about her compassion and her caring, all true. She's also a bit of a troublemaker. To the gentleman from the 20th and the 24th who spoke before me, yeah, she would really pull one over on you guys. As you might be arguing about, oh, what's the other body doing with their capital budget, Norma would lean over to me and say, what kind of trouble can we cause? And it was really that attitude of causing trouble that probably 90% of us put in our newsletter that the Washington State Legislature has spent records amount of money on mental health. That's the kind of trouble she would cause. She was still causing trouble, but it was trouble for the people of Washington and really the people of the world. We love to bring stuff back to our districts here, especially in the capital budget. That's some of the fun. But Norma never worried about what was going back to the 10th Legislative District. She was worried what was going back to the people of Washington. And it was great to watch and an honor to be a part of, an honor to be her partner in crime at times and cause trouble. And as has been said before, this is a better place because of you, Norma. This is a better state because of you. I am a better person because of you. And while I very much look forward to the ribbon cutting of the Firelight toilet, yes, and coming up and meeting your miniature donkey, I will miss you every day that I'm here. Thank you so much.
Further remarks. The good member from the 23rd, Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Fortunately, I got a heads up about Representative Smith's announcement last week from the former representative from the 10th District, Representative Hayes, before it happened. Otherwise, you would have to carry me out of here. So this is very bad news. I know everyone says this is good news and good things are happening. For me, this is very bad news. It is horrible to lose Representative Smith as a colleague, and to that end, you may think we are done with introducing bills. I'd like you all to know that is not correct. House Bill 2997 by Representative Hansen says that there will be mandatory run for re-election from anyone from the 10th District, Position 1, whose name rhymes with Norma Smith. Okay, we already have 97 co-sponsors. Okay, so this is good. I'm sorry, you will be staying with us for a little while. So we, I've worked very closely with Representative Smith We have this bad habit in politics of saying on the floor, my friend or my good friend, when really this just means someone else who serves in this body with me. Representative Smith actually is my good friend. We worked together for 2 years on derelict vessels. We both represent island communities, and it's no small thing if a boat goes down and pollutes the sea floor and you have to shut down shellfish harvesting. We spent 2 years putting together a series of bipartisan proposals to totally rewrite that area of environmental law, and we passed them with overwhelming bipartisan support. We spent a year on net neutrality. The representative and I co-wrote the first state-level net neutrality bill in the country that passed, as newspapers later said, with, quote, rare bipartisanship, close quote. Maybe more importantly than all, we co-chaired the governor's prayer breakfast for 2 years. And that's really where, we got to know each other first. When I walked in here for the first time, that was one of the first things I did, was join the prayer fellowship, where Norma was every Tuesday reliably. And, look, people have been talking about her deep faith. Like, that's really where Representative Smith and I kind of align most closely. Our politics, there's a little bit of the Venn diagram where we cross, but our faith in the risen Lord is the complete overlap. I know in our faith, at least, everyone's equal in the eyes of the Lord, and the Lord hears everyone's prayers, and the Lord loves everyone. I am totally convinced that the Lord really, really particularly loves Norma, because there is, as I've said about her publicly before, there is a line in the Psalms about blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, in Jesus' teachings of the Beatitudes. And that is Representative Smith. When I have needed prayer, I have pulled her out of her caucus to ask for prayer. And when the Lord has put her on my heart, I have texted her and let her know. And we end up speaking and praying together, not infrequently, more frequently than you would think for a Republican and a Democrat. But I think Norma's faith is not just something about her personal relationship with Jesus Christ. It deeply affects her policy positions. Repeatedly, and it has been mentioned before, she will be on the side of people who doesn't seem like has anyone to speak up for them as loudly as maybe they should. And she is always the reminder that we do not serve in this body to represent a particular powerful interest, whoever that may be. We serve in this body to represent people who may not feel like they have anyone to be their voice. That's fundamental to our shared faith, and it is fundamental to Representative Smith's policies. And so, look, I feel it is horrible, obviously, to lose you as a colleague. I mean, I feel like I'm still learning new things about you even today. I didn't know you had a donkey. This confirms for me what I've always suspected, that you're truly a secret Democrat. But I've now had enough time to grieve and realize that, okay, for now, we will have to say goodbye, but it is not forever. And it is very hard, even for now, to say goodbye to my good friend and my colleague and my sister in the Lord, but that we will be together again when we sing the song that never ends in the presence of the Savior. Thank you.
Are there further remarks? The good member from the 36th District, Representative Tarleton.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. A lot of you on this floor may or may not know, I have been a roommate of Norma Smith for 7 years. And it is an astonishing experience to share stories that have nothing to do with this place when you know that what you're trying to figure out every morning is who takes a shower first. But we have sorted that out. Norma and I had shared, and we didn't know this until we started talking, we both have this really odd interest in national security policy, going back to the very first parts of both of our careers. She was ahead of me, but we overlapped in Washington, D.C., and and found that regardless of our different views perhaps on politics, we shared very similar views on U.S. Congress. Norma and I also share an intense desire to tell stories about our dogs. And, we've shared many photos about dogs and our families, and we've shared many fears about our colleagues here and family members who are suffering from all kinds of illness and concerns. And we've also managed to cheer together even when we had just finished 14 hours on this House floor, when there was a well-fought floor debate, whether or not we were on the same side of the debate. And Norma, I just want to honor your love of music and family and community with quoting a song that has surrounded me my whole life, from my family and my friends. And Madam Speaker, if you will allow me to recite this song, I'm not going to sing it. But I can recite it from memory, but I don't want to take credit for it. It is a Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young song. May I recite?
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is for you, Norma. It's called Teach Your Children. You who are on the road must have a code that you can live by. And so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well. May their father's hell slowly go by. And feed them on your dreams, the one they picks, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh and know they love you. And you of tender years can't know the fears that your elders grew by. And so please feed them on your dreams, the one you picks, the one they'll know by. And don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh and know they love you. Thank you, Norma, for all of your service to our state.
Further remarks, the good member from the 23rd District, Representative Appleton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Oh, they changed it. They had Appleton up there this whole time. And I thought, well, geez, we're inexplicably tied together. And when I say that, I got on a plane for Florida. Who do I see but Norma? And I went, huh. And she was visiting her son and grandchildren, right? Oh. Anyway, I was it was wonderful having somebody I know on the plane. The other thing is that we did a widow's dinner at Marcia Fromholz, and there were 6 of us who went. And it was a joyous time. It wasn't a sad time. But it was really something to know that your fellow ladies, 6 of them, were widows at the same time. And it seemed like our husbands all died around the same year. So we won't go back to 2006, please. And the last thing I have to say is, Norma, you are terrific. I can't say the same things that everybody else said, but I can tell you that I have respected and loved you since the beginning, and I wish you Godspeed.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question before the House is adoption of Resolution 4684. As many are as in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Norma, this is the official resolution for you. And I'd like to just say a couple of things. One is Representative Wilcox described you as determined, and I've always thought the word that I used with you was always fierce. And that people should never confuse your loving and caring nature with your ferocity when you know that something is right. And that is something that I've always appreciated. The other thing that I would just note is that when we met at the beginning of session and you weren't yet telling people really exactly, but it's so clear that the next thing you're doing is something you feel called to do. Just like you felt called to come here, you feel called to do the next thing that you are going to do, and your community is so lucky that you are called to go and mentor and work with couples and families and kids in your community and around the world. And I so appreciate the fact that you're not moving actually into retirement, you're moving into your next calling. And the last thing I would say is just a little bit of a follow-up to what Representative Tarleton said is for your children and grandchildren out there. You should know that we love her. Congratulations, Norma.